Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Oldham County Fiscal Court special meeting. It's a little bit after 10 o'clock on Thursday morning. What is today, the 29th day of June. We're happy to have all of you here this morning. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. This particular recorded program will be played the next week. 4th of July is coming up next week, so I'd ask everyone to, when you say the Pledge of Allegiance this morning, say it with all the sincerity in your heart and love for our country that all of us have. We have a tendency to recite the pledge in a rote style sometimes, not even thinking about the words that we all treasure and the sacrifices that have been made by the people who have fought and preceded us in our country to give us the liberty that we have. So let's all say the pledge today as sincerely as we can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Now I'm going to ask our clerk, Sheila Fair, to please call the roll.
Magistrate Likens.
Here.
Magistrate Tice.
Here.
Magistrate Leslie. Magistrate Greenwell.
Here.
Magistrate Hounds.
Here.
Magistrate Eldridge.
Here.
Magistrate Dye.
Here.
Magistrate Logsdon.
Here.
Judge Vogel.
Here. Having 8 of the 9 members of the fiscal court present this morning, our meeting is now in session. Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
Second.
This is a special call meeting. The agenda has been posted for 24 hours, and so because it's a special call meeting, there are no allowed changes to the agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. All right. Sheila, will you now read the minutes from our meeting on June 20th?
June 20th, 2017. The Oldham County Fiscal Court convened at a regular meeting at 2 p.m. with Judge Executive David Vogel, County Attorney John Carter, and the following magistrates in attendance: Brent Likens, Wayne Tice, Bob Leslie, Steve Greenwell, Chris Hounds, Bob Dye, and Michael Logsdon. Magistrate Eldridge was absent. Motion made by Magistrate Dye and seconded by Magistrate Greenwell to approve the agenda. Motion carried unanimously. The meeting minutes of June 6th were read aloud and approved unanimously. Public comment. County Clerk Julie Barr presented information about the upcoming delinquent tax sale July 27th at 9 a.m. in the fiscal courtroom. Those with delinquent property taxes can contact the county attorney at 222-7342 to discuss payment plan options. U.S. Coast Guard Petty Officer Blair Patterson spoke to the court about recruiting and outreach efforts. Call 969-4006 for more information. Stormwater Management District Budget Presentation. Oldham County Stormwater Management District Board Chairman Will Douglas presented information relating to its budget for fiscal year 2017-18 and responded to questions from the court. County Administration Payables. Motion made by Magistrate Logsdon and seconded by Magistrate Likens to approve the payables as presented with the addition of a claim for Classic Cuisine for $2,342. Motion carried 7-1. Magistrate Greenwell voted no. Community Business, first reading, ordinance refinancing a 2009 GO bond for OSEA. County Treasurer Melissa Horn presented for first reading proposed ordinance number KOC 17-220-414 relating to refinancing GO bonds relating to OSEA as submitted. The second reading public hearing will be July 18th. Contract agreements and resolutions. Apple Patch CBDG grant, legally binding agreement, and forgivable loan agreement. Motion made by Magistrate Dye and seconded by Magistrate Greenwell to authorize the Judge Executive to sign the legally binding agreement and forgivable loan agreement relating to the Apple Patch CBDG grant as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Financial Accounting System Replacement. Motion made by Magistrate Logsdon and seconded by Magistrate Dye to authorize the Judge Executive to award the Financial Accounting System project to Waypoints LLC for AccuFund software and support services. Motion carried unanimously. Personnel actions. Parks and Recreation. Motion made by Magistrate Leslie and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to hire Emily Bennett and Bailey Richardson as building monitors at $7.40 an hour effective June 21st. Motion carried unanimously. Dispatch. Motion made by Magistrate Leslie and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to hire Tyler Shaw as telecommunicator 2 at $15.69 an hour effective June 26th. Motion carried unanimously. Board appointments. North Oldham Fire Protection District Board. Motion made by Magistrate Likens and seconded by Magistrate Leslie to reappoint Jack Icing to the North Oldham Fire Protection District Board with a term to expire June 30th, 2020. Motion carried unanimously. South Oldham Fire Protection District Board. Motion made by Magistrate Logsdon and seconded by Magistrate Dye to reappoint Dennis Dybel to the South Oldham Fire Protection District Board with a term to expire June 30th, 2020. Motion carried unanimously. LaGrange Fire Protection District Board. Motion made by Magistrate Dye and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to reappoint Amy Alvey to the LaGrange Fire Protection District Board with a term to expire June 30th, 2020. Motion carried unanimously. Westport Fire Protection District Board. Motion made by Magistrate Leslie and seconded by Magistrate Greenwell to reappoint Sue Stock to the Westport Fire Protection District Board with a term to expire June 30th, 2020. Motion carried unanimously. Pee Wee Valley Fire Protection District Board. Motion made by Magistrate Hounds and seconded by Magistrate Logsdon to reappoint Joy Tabler to the Pee Wee Valley Fire Protection District Board with a term to expire June 30th, 2020. Motion carried unanimously. Oldham Chamber and Economic Development Board. Motion made by Magistrate Dye and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to reappoint Gary Hardy to the Chamber and Economic Development Board with a term to expire June 30th, 2020. Motion carried unanimously. Planning Commission Board. Motion made by Magistrate Tice and seconded by Magistrate Likens to appoint Barry Hampton to the Planning Commission Board to fulfill Joyce Albertson's unexpired term through August 16th, 2019. Motion carried unanimously. Code Enforcement Board. Motion made by Magistrate Greenwell and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to appoint Ed Halfling to the Code Enforcement Board to fulfill Barry Hampton's unexpired term through June 16th, 2019. Motion carried unanimously. Second public comment, none. Announcements. Judge Vogel announced the impending retirement of Coroner Brett Donner and that Assistant Coroner Mike Whited will be appointed to fulfill Mr. Donner's unexpired term starting August 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2018. Judge Vogel announced he is appointing current Emergency Management Director Kevin Nuss as Deputy Judge Executive, replacing John Black, who is retiring June 30th, 2017. Several fiscal court members congratulated and welcomed Kevin Nuss. Magistrate Logsdon announced traffic is heavy in Crestwood due to construction and road projects and asked drivers to be patient. He announced the poles are going up for the red light at Highway 329 and 22. Magistrate Dye announced the turning lanes in Crestwood should be completed prior to the projected date in November. He encouraged residents to hide valuables from view in vehicles and lock doors. Magistrate Tice reported the public is utilizing the new disc golf course. Magistrate Likens announced the county's 4th of July celebration and fireworks at Windlemore Park Tuesday, July 4th. Judge Vogel announced the dedication of the new South Oldham Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility. He reminded the community of the special fiscal court meeting scheduled for Thursday, June 29th at 10 a.m. and no meeting on July 4th. Motion made by Magistrate Greenwell and seconded by Magistrate Dye to adjourn the meeting. Motion carried unanimously. The meeting was adjourned at 3:19 p.m.
You've heard the reading of our minutes from June 20th. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. One abstention. Time now for public comment. That's our time during the meeting when anyone who would like to address the fiscal court with an issue of community concern is able to do so. Welcome Becky Zockline.
Yes. Good morning, Judge. As solid waste coordinator for the county, I'm proud to announce that we have completed our 5-year plan solid waste management update, and it will be available for public comment beginning July 7th through August the 8th, through August the 7th, with a public hearing scheduled for August the 8th, if there are any public comments. There will be copies available in the fiscal court building, in the planning and zoning suite, and in the judge's office. And I look forward to everyone giving it a look.
Anybody? Magistrate Logsdon?
Did you say it was online also?
It will be online, yes.
Magistrate Eldridge?
Thank you, Judge. Just like to say that Ms. Auckland has done a yeoman's job of this. She worked with a small committee, but she's carried most of the water and has just done a good job of putting it together, and appreciate her efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, I'd like to ask you to state your name and address, please.
Good morning. My name is Leah Schmidt, and I'm with Crossroads Pregnancy Resource Center.
And our address is 6435 West Highway 146, Suite 2 in Crestwood at 40014. And I would like to personally invite each of you to our grand opening celebration. Crossroads is a center that offers hope, help, and healing to families experiencing unplanned pregnancies in our community. And our grand opening is going to be held on July 8th at noon, from noon to 2. There will be light refreshments and tours of the facility being offered that day. And also, we invite you to join us for our time of prayer to cover the facility in prayer from 10:30 to 11:30.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate the invitation, and I'm sure many of our members of Fiscal Court will do their best to attend. Is there anyone else who would like to address Fiscal Court here? Well, hang on just a second. We'll let, all right, thank you. Okay. I'll just repeat that, July 8th, noon. That's, July 8th is a Sunday, isn't it? Saturday, all right, Saturday noon, so it's Saturday after the 4th of July. And that's at 6435 West Highway 146 in Crestwood, which is right across the street from the former Sonic Drive-In. So, all right, welcome. Please state your name and address.
My name is Adam Bear. I live at 1100 Cherrywood Court. I'm here a little bit early. I'm actually here for the first reading of the zoning map amendment.
Oh, okay.
For Pine Ridge Road. Just a quick thing. I've been up all night, so I just want to make a quick statement. I know this is not going to come up for vote.
We can't take statements on the first reading, Adam.
So I have to wait until...
You have to wait to the second reading.
All I'm asking is for the magistrates and Mr. Vogel to drive through the subdivision before this comes to a vote, just to understand the Oldham County residents that this will be affecting. That's all I wanted to ask.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if you misunderstood that. The first reading is just basically a public announcement of a discussion that's going to come up at the second reading regarding the zoning of this property. So,
I understand that. I just wanted to make sure everybody,
all right. Thank you.
knew the subdivision that was going to affect.
Anyone else who would like to address the fiscal court? All right, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public comment, and we'll go on to our first. We have several presentations from public agencies today. First one is from Tourism District, and Kim Buckler is here. Kim, would you like to come forward with your presentation?
Good morning. I usually present marketing at the same time, but I'll just stick with the budget today and come back at a different time for the marketing portion of it. First off, can you, well, you know what that is. I don't know if you all compare this to last fiscal year's budget. Our taxes were down, and how our main number is developed is from previous year's taxes, and then we take that, divide it by 12, and that was tourism's budget and our monthly check from fiscal court. Our collections for 16-17 for this fiscal year has been running an average of 14% off of last year, which is a pretty significant amount. But in looking at STAR reports, which is Smith Travel Research reports that we purchase, that's pretty standard for some reason in the industry this winter. So it's really no different than the rest of the state. I met with a hotel consultant this morning before I got here, who in his research found the same thing in the reports that he got looking for hotel spots across the state. So that was unfortunately pretty average. So our normal budget would be 150 is usually what we run. This time it'll be 137.4. The new payment schedule for that is different based on that, so we can have a cushion in our funds that we're paid from each month. And I'm sure all of you all know, you've been here long enough, that the top number, our taxes, are our only source of funding. So if hotel stays are down, our funding is down.
The hotels pay that in monthly to fiscal court. Fiscal court writes 100% of that to the Tourism Commission, and that's how we market the county. So this budget will be based on 137.4. 21,246 is state matching funds. And to offset that difference, what I did this time was take advantage of more state co-ops. I usually try to do something that's more branding for us than it is state, but because of that difference, we went with more state co-ops this time. So our total revenues are 158,646, just matching funds and our tax. Our carryover will be 12,953, so that's our total available, 171,598. And then the breakdown of that, well, your next page is basically the same thing. I'll go to page 4. If you start with page 4, that's where it really starts breaking it down. Salaries of 55. I'm the only employee still. Until our tax dropped this time, the goal was to have a part-time person who could manage some of the new programs that we've developed over the last 3 years and really hone in on those and work on relationships with group tour operators and all that as a result of the marketing we had done for the last 3 years. So 55, that's the only employee rate. Of course, FICA, unemployment, that's standard. But what you'll notice is one of the things we pride ourselves on in tourism is spending the bulk of what we bring in advertising and marketing, and we keep our expenses as low as we can possibly keep them. So you see almost 79,000 of that is spent in marketing and advertising, and that is, and we take advantage of as much state co-ops as we can, and work out discounts with all of our media for our entire year. So 3,200 for professional services. That's basically our CPA who does our audit. We do an audit every year. KRS states that we have one every 2, but since we've been in existence, we do one every year. And that's a financial audit and a process audit. $1,400 for utilities. Rents and leases, $66.60. We pay $500 a month for rent in the building, 7204. Highway 329 in the Jones Group building across from Starbucks, or the first floor. So we pay $500 a month for that. The additional is storage unit where we store all of our brochures and our trade show exhibits, and we're at what's now Red Dot Storage in Crestwood. Insurance and bonds, this number is slightly higher than it was last year, the last 2 years really, but we just moved everything over to CAECO. So they had a lot more coverage for a lot more things than we were getting for a third of the money more. So that was just smarter. CNR state signage, that's the brown signs that you see in the county, cultural and recreational signage. This $1,500 is maintenance on those signs. They've taken a lot of them down for construction. I just got an order. It takes 4 months for production. I just got an order delivered to the road department 2 weeks ago. That was $3,300 worth of new signs to put up to replace ones that had been taken down. And like the distilleries now on the craft trail, Bourbon Trail, so their signage had to change to have a still for the craft trail. So this $1,500 is just maintenance of those. So 94,335 is just contracted services. Of course, materials, 2,300 for supplies. You know, just those are just basic. No anything odd in that. Our SPGE fee, if there's a positive about dropping in budget number, it's our SPGE fee's low. It's dropped half. So it's usually $500, and that drops to $250 to register for SPGE. Credit card fees is new because one of the things we're doing, I started in December, but it's really taken off in July. In working with group tour operators for the last 3 years, a request that we had is when those operators stay in Oldham County, if I can get them to stay for 2 nights, then I'll help plan their entire regional stay to entice them to stay in our hotels for at least 2 nights. So one of the things that they have requested, we had 27 group tours here staying in our hotels last year from our marketing that I worked with directly. More than that, who just show up and don't check in. They wanted to be able to make one payment for their entire Oldham County trip aside from hotels. So as a convenience, we now accept Square. So they're able to just pay us, and then we distribute that money to all the farm tours, and we do catering for them for buffet meals, the History Center when they do tours. So that'll be 50 to 62 people at a time. Another reason we did that was, for example, next Thursday, we have 130 elementary students from Oldham County, from Camden, that I've planned their entire field trip for the day, and they wanted to be able to do one payment instead of writing 7 checks that day. So that's what that credit card fees is. We don't, as of right now, we don't mark any of that up, so there's no profit in it for tourism. We're playing with that, so that might be another source of income. Dues and subscriptions, $450. Travel and training, $1,000. That's for the director training in Frankfurt. We have statute training and open meetings, open record. We have all those types of trainings, the same as you all do. Grants and donations every year. We've got $2,500 on here every year. What we do for the History Center is they do historical markers, which are brass. And those, we do one of those in the county a year, and that goes through the Kentucky Historical Society. And they have a map and an app that people take that tour based on where those markers are. And we've done that for the History Center for about 6 years. So this year they'll have a choice to put that new marker on their grounds for the new renovations, or do one in the county. But we do a dedication. We did, for example, the one that was in Pee Wee with Annie Fellows Johnston. We paid for that. $10,000 to put in our money market account. So $13,950 in administration. $1,100 to keep our all of our software updated. Luckily, that's Windows and generic software. And that's about it.
Right,
One of
Judge.
the things I wanted to mention is I have a meeting with Planning and Zoning this afternoon about I brought this up the last year in the tourism industry in general, is the effect of Airbnb and all of the temporary housing rentals, short-term rentals. And that has become, I don't want to call it an issue, it's not really that, but it's a much bigger issue this year. If you remember correctly, when I came in last year and reported on that, we had 11 properties on Airbnb specifically. And now, as of a month ago, we have 40. So not only from a transient room tax standpoint and a tax standpoint, there's an ordinance issue with that. There are health department inspections and that type of thing. And I've been calling on those for 3 years myself, just going there and trying to contact them through Airbnb. And if you've been on Airbnb, it's a tricky thing in how to you don't get their phone number or address or anything. So 40 was a little much. But in doing that, the last 3 years, we've added 11 properties to our tax collection. So in addition to those 4 hotels, we have 11 properties who collect a transient room tax. So I have a meeting with Planning and Zoning this afternoon to go through that, and Bardstown has, and this is an industry thing, this isn't an Oldham County thing, Bardstown has kind of taken the lead on that and developed a procedure for that, because what I found in talking with those people is they don't know that they need a permit or a license or anything. They just think they have a spare room or a house that they want to rent out, thinking that's extra income. But because we don't require them to have a business license in the county or any of that, they don't know to do that. And most of them, when they find out, are more than willing to do that. They just don't, there's not a way for them to know that. So collectively, we need to develop a process for those people. And they're not just bed and breakfast. They're whole house rentals, like at Hermitage, for example. And as it states in our ordinances, a bed and breakfast is on a farm. And that's not necessarily the case anymore. We really only have 2 that are on a farm out of 11 properties. So I'll be meeting with them, and I've got with planning and zoning, and I have some printouts on that and what we'll do for that. So just wanted you all to know that was coming down the pike at some point. So we've got 4 major tourism projects we're working on, and you'll hear about those. That'll be huge.
Right. Does anyone have any questions for Kim here? Magistrate Greenwell.
Thank you, Kim.
As far as the properties that aren't on farms that are bed and breakfast, does the ordinance need to be rewritten so that it includes them? Is that how we need to do that?
How we have figured it, when all the tourism directors meet with planning and zoning and all that in communities, what we have figured out is there is a definite difference. Right now in the county, it's B&Bs on farms. And that's just the way it is. It's what it's always been, like Hermitage or Bluegrass Country Estate. But we will have to rewrite the ordinance, but one of the things that has come out is there's a definition difference in a short-term rental, a bed and breakfast inn, and a bed and breakfast home. A bed and breakfast home, you actually get a breakfast. An inn, you don't necessarily get breakfast. Short-term rental, you don't get breakfast. You can't even serve food. So we have things in the county now that are in all 3 of those categories. So it's going to need some work, but I have plenty of research that will help us write that correctly, where other communities have done it. Okay. And 2, when those people call me or when I am in contact with them, I visited 3 in the last 2 weeks, for example. One of them will rent their entire house and be an event venue, and he is registered as a B&B, but what we found out in that process, he's already been approved for that, but if he's going to have events there, like weddings or rent the entire house out, which is 7,000 square feet, that requires now an entirely different permit, which he didn't know at the time. So it's an event, a venue permit, bed and breakfast, short-term rental. And I rewrote the ordinance and presented it, and you all approved it in 2014. And it laid out the definition of what an accommodations was, because there was a misconception at the time that if it was more than 30 days, then the transient room tax wasn't collected, which was not the case. So that was written in 2014. Now it needs to be revised again for all of this. And this is just new in the last couple years. It's just taken off. So.
Thank you.
I think we're used to people renting out property for Derby in the county, but now it's reached a point where people are renting out properties for a year round, and it's probably great if you're a person who has property to rent, or it's convenient for you to do that, but you may not like it if your next door neighbor has a continuous flow of strangers showing up and living in the, spending a night or 2 in the house next door to you.
Bardstown addressed that in theirs because by having an actual document and a procedure, they said this is going to be based on your homeowners association and what your subdivision, it will have to be approved by them as part of the county's. They did a really good job with it, because nobody, including the tourism industry, is saying, we don't want you to do Airbnb and all of that. We have some of those 11 properties that we have that says, we'll gladly pay the transient room tax. We didn't even know about that. But we don't want you to advertise this anymore because we get all the business we can handle with Airbnb. So it's not, we're not saying we don't want you to do all of that. You can still do all of that. And it has been such an issue in the industry that Airbnb actually rewrote their fee structure and their tax structure. And I have that too. They just announced it 2 weeks ago. That says you as the host are responsible for making sure you have all of your local and state taxes covered. But too, there's an issue that they address in the Bardstown document where it talks about health inspections and, if you rent somebody's house, it could be fine and they could have permits, but you need to make sure their refrigerator is the right temperature to hold the food that you're putting in it. They don't necessarily have to have a 3-section commercial sink. You know, it's not, but my point is that there could be some misconception on the court about them being homes that are in subdivisions, and that's not the majority. The majority of them own large pieces of land, and they want to do receptions and have event space, which we have a shortage of. So we welcome all of that. They're not renting rooms out of their house in Oldham County. They have an extra house that they're renting. So it's not the typical Airbnb scenario.
Any other thoughts here? The signs that you provided to the road department, are they signs that are intended to replace small signs on existing standards that are out there?
Yes, the deal was when we came up with that program, and I don't remember, you may have been in office, but if the post was already there because it requires an auger and concrete, and the county didn't have equipment to do that, that the county road department would replace the signs that are there. And like you have brought up the game room at exit 17, that will be taken off and replaced with a new one, but no new posts.
We're able to do that, but we're not able to install new standards out
Right.
there. Right.
And I knew that when I ordered them. And I've tried to work with Wes to get an appointment set up to explain those.
I have one more question for you. I believe our room tax is 3%, correct?
Correct.
A lot of places I visit, when I look at my bill, it seems to say 13 or 15%. Is that 3% set in, it's in our ordinance or in a statute, or where is the 3% set?
The 3% is set by state statute. You can add other things to it, as Louisville, for example, is 17%. That's their transient tax, but they have other taxes. If there's a special event, you'll pay 22, 23%. So there are event taxes and that type of thing. We could raise our tax by ordinance, 1%, but there are actually 3 tourism taxes: transient room tax, restaurant tax, convention center tax. The convention center tax goes to only maintain, not build, but help maintain a convention center. 1% restaurant tax, the up and down side of that, I know you all probably hear about that because it's a sticky situation in most places. We don't have a restaurant tax in this community, but that's normally 1%. The upside of that is everybody pays that restaurant tax, whereas the transient room tax, visitors into the community pay it. It's tourists who pay that. The restaurant tax is paid by everybody in the community. And where that restaurant tax came from were places like Kentucky Lake, who don't have a lot of accommodations because they're a houseboat community. They couldn't get money from a transient tax, but they had a lot of restaurants. So they would do the restaurant tax as a result of that. The restaurant tax also funded the sports park in Elizabethtown and did the bonds. That has gotten so big that it has its own commission and staff and all of that. So usually there is, and I'll say just a plug, the tourism industry in general is obviously in support of that restaurant tax because there are projects that are connected to that tax specifically. And typically a restaurant tax is three times what a transient tax is because everybody pays it. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's 1%, even residents pay it. So, but we could raise the transient tax in Oldham County of 1%.
I see. Okay. I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just asking a question about it.
We've thought about it. But I did have a meeting this morning with the hotel consultant for the Hampton. So I just came from there to here and have a meeting with the owner of that this afternoon also. Friday, talked to Karan Shaw, who he and I talk about once a month anyway, but he's the Holiday Inn Express on Parker. They're supposed to be starting construction on that at the end of the summer. They got held up. Their funding at their bank, the bank was bought out by a different bank and they had to move everything. So it slowed it down. They were supposed to have broke ground this spring. So we're looking at probably fall of 2018 for Holiday Inn. Hampton is still trying to figure out.
All right, thank you, Kim. Appreciate your presentation, very complete. Thank you very much. We have a presentation now on the budget for the ambulance taxing district. I believe we have Board Member Steve Turover here. Welcome, Steve.
Morning, Judge, gentlemen, Sheila. My name is Steve Turover. I'm a member of the Oldham County Ambulance Taxing District. My fellow board member, Stan Clark, is also here today, if there's any questions. I want to start by walking you through the budget quickly. Revenue projected at $4.3 million, up about 1% from the year that's ending tomorrow. The small increase comes from property and motor vehicle taxes. If you look at the first 4 lines of our budget, you'll see the taxes, property, automotive, finance, cabinet, omitted tangibles. That makes up 66% of our budget, so it's tax receipts. And another 1/3 of our budget comes from patient fees, when we bill patients that we transport. There's some other minor items in there that make up about 1% of the budget. Expenses, of the $4.3 million that comes in, we're going to spend 99% of it this year. Last year it was 98%. The 2 big ticket items are management service fees to Baptist, which you can see we're raising 3% this year, which we negotiated with them. And this is the first increase in the contract annual fee since we started that deal, and we're entering the 6th year. So it's working out pretty well. And the patient fees, we simply reimburse Baptist. It's a pass-through. Other operating expenses, which is about $500,000, are going to increase about $34,000. Those are charges related to the new ambulance building in LaGrange, depreciation charges, and insurance. We have a line called Other Income, which is it's the retrospective rate adjustment on our deal with Baptist. So we have a fixed fee going into the year, $2,266,000. We don't know if we're going to spend $2,266,000, a little more or a little less. So if we go a little under, then we split that difference with them. If we go a little over, then we pay half that difference with them. So bottom line, operating income is $267 compared to $396 last year, which is a considerable drop, but our cash flow is going to be positive this year, whereas it was negative last year. Capital items, we don't have a schedule of that here, but there are 2 main items. One is we spend that money mostly for motor vehicles and medical supplies. The state required us to switch from van-type ambulances to a truck chassis, and it has a bigger box on it, so you have to replace the whole ambulance. We purchased the first one this year. We're going to purchase another one this year. Those ambulances cost about $180,000, which is about $40,000 more than the van-type ambulances. And actually, we've got the first one on the road. I'm pretty excited about it. It required extra training for the EMTs and paramedics and so forth, because there are things in there that are different. So we carefully monitor our operating expenses, our capital items, and we're able to keep the tax rate the same as it has been for a number of years now at 474 per 100, 0474 per 100. I'm going to change topics from the budget, but before I do that, are there questions on these figures? that
Anyone
Stan
have
or I
a
can answer?
question on anything on the first page here? Magistrate Greenwell?
Steve, why the mandate from the state to change from a box-type van to a truck chassis?
Do you know the answer to that?
Because we used to have those several years ago, and they were nothing but a headache, and it might have just been the brand that, I don't know.
I don't know.
Wasn't there was a change in the manufacturer? I don't know if it was a change in the state, because the van chassis were Ford chassis,
I think you're
GMC
right.
chassis. They don't make that chassis anymore. So they've gone, most of the manufacturers have gone to the F-Series or comparable Ford or Chevy truck chassis. So I don't know there may be a mandate, but I know that the manufacturers have gone away from the van chassis because they
Yeah.
can't make them in diesel.
Yeah, we're using Ford 450s,
Okay.
F-450s, And I think you're right. I think it's the manufacturer, is that
Yeah,
right?
the vans aren't made in diesel anymore, so they can't put them in the ambulance. Well, they don't want to put them in ambulances.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a state mandate. I just know about the manufacturer mandate.
Yeah, but that's all they make now. You can't buy a van chassis anymore, so,
And not put a custom box on it.
okay.
They should die.
How many vehicles are you running? How many's in your fleet?
I'm going to cover that in a minute.
Okay.
Else, why don't you address patient fees? Number of people think that if you call an ambulance, there is no follow-up cost to the person who actually uses the service. But I think we go
patient
through this
fees
each year, but
expert here.
we need to keep making the point that the tax doesn't pay for the entire cost of the service.
Right. The main thing, patient fees, is the charge for using the services. The taxes is what keeps the service available and ready to respond quickly. One of the metrics we as directors monitor is what is the average response time, and we've kept it well under the national average. We keep it around 8 minutes. Some months it's a little faster. So it's all about being ready and being there and having the training and the equipment ready to think, because we truly can save lives with our ambulances and stuff. We have the equipment and the training, and we can get there quick enough when it matters to make a difference. And so the taxes are paying to be ready, no matter who you are. And then when you use the service, you pay your standard insurance, Medicaid rates and stuff for that service.
Right, thank you. All right, Steve, if you'd like to proceed with the
I
rest.
will. Okay. Stay right there. Okay, so when I joined the board, the ambulance board, they were talking about building a substation in LaGrange. We had our ambulances parked at the hospital outside. There were wires running into the building to plug them in. There were problems in the winter time because it gets too cold for the medications that are on board and so forth. In the process of designing that substation, Stan and I, as the building committee, said, well, this is nuts. If we're going to spend money and we have this perfect location, let's build a new headquarters for the ambulance district, for the service, for the EMS, and then we'll convert the Buckner building into a substation. So that's how we got into this building, this new building. Subsequent to that, as we finish it up, we're saying, well, what happens next? What do we build next? Do we need to build anything next? Well, we started by saying, when we built the new station, do we sell the building in Buckner? I said, well, then there's an argument, well, that's where a lot of the growth in the county is going to come. Maybe that's a good location. So we started by doing some research. We put together a study, population trends, forecasts, and so forth. Took information from everywhere, U of L, the County Planning Commission, everywhere. We pulled it all into one document. Ended up with about 32 pages, maps, charts, the whole works, most of which you've probably all seen before. And then we supplemented that and mapped it against our ambulance utilization. Because just because there's more people in one place than another doesn't mean you get more ambulance calls in one place than another. So we're very mindful of that. So I think this is in the book, right, Sheila? This little, yeah, okay.
I think everybody has it.
Okay, so our major conclusions from this 32 pages comes down to this, which we've listed right here. We're going to see growth over the next 5-10 years along 42 east of Goshen Lane, along 329 north of 71, and along southeastern Kentucky 22, which is pretty much rural now. So also, when we look at the concentration of growth in this county, the concentration of population, it's really in 3 zip codes: the Prospect, the Oldham County part of Prospect zip code, Crestwood, and LaGrange. So what we're talking about is where we expect to see a lot of the growth is Crestwood, Brownsboro, Buckner, Centerfield, Balladgeville, and LaGrange. So we have that in mind. So now we go to, this is our backdrop. Where do we need to put ambulances? So you can see on page 1 of this strategic plan, we have 9 ambulances spread out over 5 locations. Some of those locations run 2 crews, which is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Some have crews both of those shifts. Some have them only one shift. And this actually seems to work very well. We by all the metrics that Stan just mentioned, we think that we are meeting the demand very well. Our first issue is in South Oldham. We have a station in Crestwood. It's about 2,000 square feet. It is wholly owned. We don't owe any money for it, but it won't fit the new ambulances in it. They're 2 feet too long to fit into the bay at Crestwood. Plus, if you look on page 2, the bottom of page 2, there's a number of issues with the Crestwood station other than that have to do with dust and snow and problems with the HOA there. Any one of those we could live with, but when you start piling one on top of the other, it gets to say, you know, why are we here? And one of the issues when we built that building, or we bought that spot in that, it's like a row of buildings, we bought that spot, there's a, I don't know, what do you call that, an attic? It's about 400 square foot, and we thought that'd be a great place for storage, for supplies and so forth, and the fire marshal wouldn't let us use it because we had an ambulance inside the building. So it just doesn't work. So that's our first priority strategically, is to do something about Crestwood. So we'll end up selling that property. We're currently actually looking for an acre in the Crestwood area to build a new building. Buckner. The more you look at the population trends, you say, you know, maybe we shouldn't sell Buckner. We'll keep that as a possibility. Maybe we should keep that location. And the current thinking is 2 or 3 years from now, we can look at Buckner and maybe salvage the bays. I mean, an ambulance bay is an ambulance bay, and take the administrative part of the building, which is way too big for our current use, and redo it into a substation. In the meantime, we're once in a while find somebody who may be interested in leasing part of that building from us now. So it's about 6,000 square feet. It sits on 2.5 acres. It is wholly owned. It was appraised for $565,000 last year. North Oldham, we have our ambulances in the firehouse. And at nighttime, we have an ambulance over at Skylight in that firehouse. I was talking to the chief last night, and everything works fine there, and there's no reason to do anything there except keep an eye on developments, and maybe 6 or 8 or 10 years from now, we'll need a substation out in Skylight or somewhere down 42. So when we talk about substations, what are we really talking about? Well, we're talking about building a building that's of the same quality as the one we just built. That is insulated concrete forms, solar panels, the heavy-duty floor, a building that's built to last about 40 or 50 years, and that's basically non-energy consumption. If you look at the chart on the last page here, page 6, sort of compare the LaGrange station to what we think is a model substation. The substations are going to be about 65% smaller, and they'll be on about a 40% smaller lot. So the first thing you see, in LaGrange, we built 4 double bays. In a substation, we'd build 2 double bays. Maybe 3, because when you're building, it doesn't cost much to add the 3rd one while you're building, compared to adding a 3rd bay 10 years from now. The administrative part of the building is like 80% smaller. We don't need a training room. We don't need administrative offices. The lounge can be much smaller because there's smaller crews and so forth. So what we end up with is the 40% smaller building. under 4,000 square feet compared to this one, which is 10,500. Cost to build, about 1 million versus the 2.6 million that we spent on this one. And we think the largest size lot we would use is about an acre, maybe a little less. And I'm sure, since I zipped through that so quickly, there's got to be a question.
I'm not sure about population trend in Buckner, but I know we're about 350 people are moving there later this year or early next year. So on Highway 146, we're going up there now. Hopefully, you won't have to be called there too much. You know.
I mean, when we look out, we were trying to look out, 3, 5, 10 plus years out. And, things will change on how we build. Like along 42, they're talking about the subdivisions will be smaller lot, kind of half-acre lots. In other places I've lived, that's exactly what we saw, and that could happen there. And we don't know what'll happen down on 22 down there, but residential or commercial building will likely take place. So, yes.
Anybody have any questions? Manager Greenwell.
In trying to figure out growth and population and everything, did you use the resources that the school board might have? Because they study that all the time, obviously.
I don't remember, I saw so many resources. And,
That might be something, and I don't know that they would share, I don't know why they wouldn't, but it might be a valuable resource.
I know the sewer district had really detailed
Right.
stuff. We started with the U of L's forecast for the county, so that's a base. And then what we wanted to do is to break it down into where in the county and what it would look like in kind of a configuration that makes sense for what we do. I mean, we don't need how many children are going to go to school here. We just want to know where things are going to be. So, in a more general sense.
Manager Hounds.
One of the statistics that I've seen lately on the fire side is that the baby boomer population, the age group, will use more of the public safety services than any other age group. So obviously, the baby boomer is the largest percentage population that there is. And so it seems to believe that EMS, fire, police, those services are going to be used more because of the baby boomer population becoming of the age when they will need those services more. How have you guys looked at those numbers? Population is one thing, but when you've got the age of the people getting older, they're going to use the services more. How have you addressed that, or have you addressed it?
Yeah, we haven't really made that a specific variable in the formulas that we're using. But I know what you're saying. But it may be reflected in our utilization rates, where do we go? Who do we pick up? Do we take them somewhere? Are they sick? Are they all that? And we do a lot of transporting where, what's that, Friendship Manor? We do a lot of trips to Friendship Manor. So we're not really treating anybody per se, we're just moving them. We're trying, as we've done this study, now one of the things we discussed even at the last board meeting when the EMS guys presented their metrics, we started asking questions. Well, you've shown us, you're getting to places on average in 8 minutes, and this is where you went. Where did you come from? Where are we? You started drawing lines.
Even from the hospital, they're leaving from quarters.
Yeah, where are we actually transversing in these 8 minutes to try to get an idea? But like 2/3 of all our calls are in the city of LaGrange. I mean, it's just, those people call to get a ride to the ER.
And that's a national trend. I mean, you talk to the guys in Louisville Metro, they'll tell you the same thing, that they feel like that they're a 911 taxi service at times.
But in the more affluent areas, people just get in the car and drive to the emergency room, unless they're really ill. Any other questions?
Anybody else have anything they'd like to ask Steve here? Steve, thank you for a very complete presentation, and I believe that the fiscal court and people who are viewing on the television, those in the room here this morning, will see the amount of detail and the depth of thought that is involved in providing this service to our community. And so thank you very much, and you and the other board members as well. All right, our next presentation now is from the Oldham County Environmental Authority, and we welcome Art Henson to our meetings.
Morning.
Thank you, Art.
I'm Treasurer of the Oldham County Environmental Authority. Today, we have with us also our Board Chairman and Ed Fiscal from Veolia, our O&M provider. Since we were here last year, as you well know, we opened our new South Oldham Regional Facility. And that facility enabled us to take 2 package plants offline, which is part of our agreed order with the Kentucky Division of Water that we remove package plants from the county, and 2 were removed, and we're very happy about that. This year, we're in the process of working on removing the Ash Avenue treatment plant and bringing its flow to our new South Oldham Regional Facility. We're currently in easement acquisition phase on that pipeline. That pipeline is going to go from Pee Wee Valley up to the South Oldham plant. And as part of that process, obviously, we're going to have to borrow money to accomplish that, and that's going to cost us about $6.5 million to accomplish that process. So our budget this year had to take into consideration the needs of this new borrowing. Our borrowing covenant requires us to raise revenues at least 2%. This budget does raise those revenues at least 2%. And that covenant also requires us to have a debt coverage ratio of 1.1%, which we are just about at. We got 1.093 is in the budget. So our budget really is driven from the bottom up. We look at our expenses. When you look at our expenses, we have 2 major expenses really that impact our debt coverage ratio. That's our interest cost and our O&M contract with Veolia. That's the Veolia contract, it's a new contract, 10-year contract. It has certain raises built into it. And our interest is based upon our debt service. So if you look at those 2 big expenses, the rest of the expenses are minor in comparison. They are based upon actual costs that we incur annually. So what we do is we look at our expenses and we look at our ratios that are required, our debt coverage ratio, and we say, okay, if we have this much in expenses that we have to cover in order to meet our debt coverage ratio, what revenue is required to accomplish that? So each year we have to go through this process. Each year stands on its own. Debt coverages are reviewed each year by our lenders. So each year stands upon itself. So this year, with our new debt from the $6.5 million to do the new pipeline, we have had to develop these ratios to go forward and bring them up to the top. And it requires us, therefore, once we get to that end point, is to raise our rates 7.11% on a 4,000 gallon user. And we're really getting closer to 6,000 gallon users as our average, and those are 6.33. So that process is really driven by our debt. I mean, we have to borrow money to accomplish the massive things that we need to do to move the flow, keep our county safe from sewage overflows, and that's our goal, is to manage our expenses as best we can, but knowing that we've got certain major projects that we have to accomplish in order to meet the needs of the Division of Water. So in this process of moving flow from Ash Avenue to the South Oldham plant, we are in discussions with 2 commercial customers. Those have not reached contract stage, but Friendship Manor wants to tap into that and send their flow there. And the Kentucky Correctional Institute for Women, that's in Shelby County, but they want to send a pipeline. They will build a pipeline and tap into this new pipeline of ours. So we've got potential for some commercial income. That won't come until the following fiscal year, but that will be used to develop our revenue sources. Right now, unfortunately, all of our rate increases fall upon our current customers. We need, as we've said before, you've heard it over and over again, we need new customers. In order to get those, it's kind of like build it and they will come. We can get South Oldham online. We've got this pipeline coming up to Pee Wee Valley in that area. That can open up development in Centerfield, Buckner, Crestwood. There's some opportunities in the North Oldham area in Norton Commons and Glen Oaks, I believe. So if those opportunities develop, we can bring that flow down to the new South Oldham Regional Facility. So we're building our infrastructure. We're getting package plants offline is what we need to do, but we need more revenue from new sources. But at this point, we don't have that revenue, so the burden of these rate increases fall upon our current customers. And that's really where we are. We're not asking for as much as Jefferson County, 20% proposed. That's crazy. Bullitt County's looking for 10 over a 4-year period. So we're less than them, but everybody has their own needs, their own wants. Ours, again, is driven by our debt structure and our debt requirements. So that pretty much is where we are at this point.
All right. Does anybody have any questions here for Art? You're not asking for a rate approval today, are you?
Yes.
Is that part of your
Yes, it is.
presentation
We
here?
would like to get that approved so we can publish the rates and have those rates effective by September 1st.
September 1st, all right. Magistrate Eldridge, has the Utility Committee reviewed this?
Thank you, Judge. Utility Committee has reviewed this. As you've heard from Mr. Henson, it's just a situation of the rock and hard place. DOW is on them to make changes and make improvements at all time, and yet we're not expanding our customer base. The numbers that he has presented basically are spread over only 6,000 customers in the county. That's why these 2 new commercial lines coming on and tapping into this new area could be very important. The rate as proposed will make a 4,000-gallon user spend about $5.06 more per month, and a 6,000-gallon user spend $5.42 more per month. So while that is a substantial burden, it's much less than the counties around us are proposing. Utilities Committee unanimously decided to bring this forward and make a motion that we approve this rate.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this? All right. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. All right, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Appreciate all the work you do. Next item on the agenda here today is our county payables. And we'll go to that under tab A here. When you're ready, we'll have a motion to pay the bills for the balance of the current fiscal year.
Second.
Did anybody have any questions on these? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-1. All right, next item, our transfers for the budget, line item transfers. Melissa Horn.
In order to make sure that we don't overspend any of our budget lines, I'm asking today for line item transfers between expense accounts for a total of $298,010.
Second.
All right, we have these line item transfers in front of us to square up the budget for the current year. Does anyone have any questions on any item that's in there? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Go ahead.
The
The second thing I need to present are the transfers between general fund, jail fund, road fund, and dispatch fund. Year-to-date transfers from general fund to road total $287,915.15. Transfers from general fund to the jail fund, $709,672.79. And transfers from general fund to dispatch, $258,846.92.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on these transfers? And should die.
I meant to ask you this earlier, so I'm going to ask you now, and probably, I'm sure you will have an answer. What was the transfer for the jail last year? Remember?
From jail to jail last year.
900? 981, 751? Okay. So that means it's down about 200,000. That's probably due to the federal detainees.
I would guess so.
Plus just a general increase in the number of
People
yes.
in the jail there.
Okay, thank you.
Right, we've got a lot of them jammed in there. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Next item is the first reading of a zoning map amendment for the Pine Ridge Development Project at 1824 Pine Ridge Road in LaGrange. Amy Alvey is here this morning from Planning and Zoning, and
Good morning, Amy Alvey with Oldham County Planning Development Services. This is the first reading for a proposed zoning map amendment for property located at 1824 Pine Ridge Road in LaGrange. The property is currently zoned R2 residential and is proposed to go to C3 commercial district. This is the property location outlined there in red. This is, may have it on another slide. This is Cub Bank here. You have Kroger, and then this is Richwood Nursing Home, and then this is Tractor Supply to the south. This just kind of gives you an overview of the existing structure. There is a home located on there with a attached garage, and then this is the existing driveway. The applicant's proposing to convert the existing home into a print / lithograph shop. And this is the outline that shows what the parking area and things are. You will have a full presentation at your next scheduled fiscal court meeting, which I believe is July the 18th. And we will do all of the public notices, property postings at that point. But this is just kind of a detailed of it, and we will go into further detail at the July 18th public hearing. But I'll be happy to answer any questions.
any member of the
from-
court have a question or clarification they'd like to seek here at this point? And should die?
Basically just converting the house to a business
Yes, sir. At this point, yes.
at this point.
Yes, and there is a binding element that says that the planning commission placed on the development plan that said at any time there's an increase in traffic that changes an increase of the average daily trips, the plan will be required to go back to the planning commission for approval. But we'll go over more of that in detail at the
Okay,
public hearing.
thank you.
Anyone else? I thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
The next item here is the a grant of easements for traffic signals at 146 Highway 53. Jim Urban?
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Magistrates. In your package, you have actually two easements. They're for the corner of Kentucky 53 and 146, right out here in front of our building. They're catty corner. One easement is on the parking lot across the street, and the other is on the courthouse property. The state is putting up traffic signals, and we're working with them to put in traffic signals that are more in keeping with the historic district in which we're located. This is simply an easement to allow those signals to go in. At your last meeting, we talked about moving forward with the, some kind of supplemental payment to the transportation cabinet for these different traffic signals. At this time, I don't have that number, only because now Frankfurt has agreed and signed off on the 2 posts and the cantilevered arms. So it's in design. So at your next meeting, I should have an idea what those, what that amount difference is. But again, this is just the easements for locating those poles on the property.
Magistrate Eldridge.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Carter,
Yes.
I'm always a little confused when we get into this document, and I'd like to get some clarification from you. This agreement is actually not with Fiscal Court, is my understanding. It says it's with the Oldham County Public Facilities Construction Corporation. And on the front, while it says we're authorizing Judge Vogel to sign, when you get to the signature line, it's David Vogel as president of the Facilities Construction Corporation. Does that require some different operation, some other point of order from us? Or Jim, you may know that.
Well, and Melissa.
No, I
might be
don't
able-
think so.
I'm not sure if there has to be a kind of a separate meeting of that group, which is you, to actually sign that. And my understanding is that it can be conducted right here at this meeting.
It has
simply by-
to, I mean, they may have to meet and approve it, but fiscal court has to approve everything that the county does. They can, only fiscal court can authorize the county judge to sign something that, that causes the county to have to expend funds.
Right, but that, we're still
Well, you know,
kind of out in limbo here. I think we are the Facilities Corporation at the same time, and we've never really discussed the legal basis of where the Oldham County Public Facilities Corporation comes from or why we have one, but we do have one, and we're it.
The fiscal court is it, that's correct, yeah. Oh, well,
Well, you have some,
I'm sorry.
It is members of fiscal court, it is not fiscal court in whole. It is the 3 members of the building committee, the judge, myself, and Stan Clark.
oh, okay, well, I don't think this has come up more than once since I've been on the fiscal court, actually.
Right, one other time we had to call that corporation into session or into meeting for a vote.
All right, so the motion here today would be allow the Public Facilities Corporation to go ahead and approve this easement.
So would the building committee have to meet outside of fiscal court? I mean, I'm confused as to, you've got me even more confused. We've got 2 entities, right?
Yes.
So which entity votes first, or which entity gives approval first?
There are 2 separate, I'm going to speak out of turn. There are 2 separate easements here. One for property that fiscal court can vote on, and one for property that the Oldham County Public Facilities Construction Corporation is supposed to agree on.
Okay, so the parking lot is fiscal court, and the other easement is the corporation?
It's the AOC property that is the Public Facilities Corporation.
Okay,
That's correct. The parking lot is fiscal court.
parking lot's fiscal court. So again, is it 2 different, does the building committee have to vote on make a recommendation for the AOC side, and fiscal court then can make the recommendation for the parking lot side?
It's not the building committee. It's just the members of the building
understand.
committee
I'm
are
sorry.
part of this corporation.
Okay. And Stan and Melissa,
And judge, yes.
judge.
Judge is president.
Okay, so we'll have, I guess the members of the building committee and the rest of us can come together after this meeting, and we'll take a vote on that, but I think this is pro forma here. I mean, are we, do we have a motion to go forward on the approval for the parking lot. Magistrate Eldridge.
I would make a motion that Judge Vogel be allowed to sign the second document in the packet, the one that is for parcel number 46-L.5-03-5. And included in that motion is an allowance for the Oldham County Public Facilities Construction Corporation to meet. And if they approve, then to let President Vogel sign the other document, which is parcel number 46-L-4-06.
All right.
Second.
Second. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this? Magistrate Greenwell.
Judge, I'm going to vote against this because I have a conflict with these traffic signals being effective, but I do want to give kudos to the guy that made the motion for doing such a good job there.
Thank you.
Right, you got through it, okay. All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. And after this meeting, members of the building committee who are present, who's on the building committee here? Magistrate Likens, who else?
I don't know if we have to publish that.
Pardon?
I don't know if we have to
No,
publish a notice for that.
it's not the committee, it's just members of the committee. So that doesn't need to be published. Who's the third person? Oh, Chris, okay, thank you. All right. Next item here is the Blue Moon Canoe and Kayak Rental Agreement, supplemental agreement for Old Floydsburg Road. Belinda.
Good morning. This is a supplemental agreement with the Transportation Cabinet for the Old Floydsburg Road Safety Improvement Project. The purpose of the project is to improve geometric deficiencies from mile point 1.3 to mile point 1.5. Here, I'll put a map up for you guys. Including steep slopes, sharp curves, and a narrow roadway. The project will also replace an existing bridge that is considered structurally deficient and that does not have a safety barrier. The supplemental agreement authorizes an additional $35,000 in federal funds for the project. There's no required matching money from fiscal court. The funds will be used for Phase 2 archaeological investigation and development of final design, which will include survey work, determination of right-of-way, final construction plans, and bid documents. We are requesting fiscal court approval of the agreement and Judge Vogel's signature.
Magistrate Logston?
Judge, I'd like to recommend that you would be able to sign this agreement with KYTC, please.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're at the discussion of the Blue Moon Canoe and Kayak Rental Agreement. Tim Curtis.
Good morning, Judge, Fiscal Court. Blue Moon Canoe and Kayak is the group that does kayak and canoe rentals for the parklands, and we are interested in having them do kayak and canoe rentals at Westport Park, just to provide another amenity to park visitors there. Blue Moon does carry all the necessary insurance, and the agreement points out that they need to include Oldham County Fiscal Court as other additional insured on their agreement. The charge of $300 is $100 per month for July, August, and September. Not exactly sure how much business they're going to get this first year, but we want to make sure we got something back in return for that. And so if they have a good year down there, then we may want to revisit that next year. But that would just be a first-year agreement for $300. So Blue Moon Canoe and Kayak to rent kayaks and canoes at Westport Park. They would utilize the building down there that Westport Fire Department is using for concessions to store their canoes. They're only going to have like 12 down there this first year.
Judge, in the absence of Mr. Bob Leslie today, I would like to make the motion that we approve the contract with Blue Moon and Kayak.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Magistrate Eldridge.
In your presentation, as well as in the ultra-fine print on the second page, it refers to a insurance policy. Are we in receipt of said insurance policy?
It requires that we receive the insurance policy upon them receiving the agreement. They have not received the agreement at this
Okay,
point.
but we will not be authorizing until we see their insurance.
That is absolutely right.
Thank you.
Magistrate Greenwell.
Thank you. Tim, did they seek us out or did we seek them out?
You know, it's been kind of a joint venture. Actually, we sort of formulated the idea of having kayak and canoe rental down there. And then with the Westport Fire Department, I believe they're the ones who actually found Blue Moon because Blue Moon was doing this rental elsewhere. And so we were interested in it, but I think Westport Fire Department actually bought Blue Moon to us, is sort of how it worked.
And did you say, is this the canoe company that does the Parklands at
That's
Floyd's
correct.
Fork, I guess?
That's right.
Okay.
They do.
Okay, is there, Magistrate Logston?
Tim, I'm sure they're carrying enough insurance. I mean, this is different to being on a creek or a river versus or a creek or a lake versus a river. I mean, you're messing with barges and everything else. So is this enough insurance for them to be covered, or?
They will carry adequate insurance. And also, just so you know, they don't just set people loose on the river. They actually do boat, education and training before they put you in the canoe. And they will establish a route where your 4-hour rental will go, 2 hours out and 2 hours back, and stay out of the main shipping lanes. And it'll all be very much up to.
Mostly going to run more along the banks than that.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. I just want to make sure we're covered.
That's the main reason why I wanted to make sure we discussed it here is the liability concerns, and I understand that. So we want to make sure we have all that taken care of.
And there was a conversation in the Parks meeting about what would happen if someone did get out of the what's the route, and with the Westport Fire being there, they would have to go out and bring that person back to the shore.
And they didn't consider it an extra burden on them to be able to do that. They said they have a boat. They would, if somebody got out and was out at and couldn't get back for some reason, they've got the ability to go out and bring people back in. So.
I think Westport Fire is actually quite excited about having these people come. I spoke with them Sunday, and they were very much in favor of it. And we're also looking to try to find maybe some bands that we can get down to the park on Sunday afternoon or Saturdays to try to enhance enjoyment of the park and create more activity that would be beneficial.
Right, and along those same lines, I'm going to give you all a big thank you because the additional property acquisition we've had down there, the park is really looking nice. It's really developed and it's grown considerably. And Westport Fire is selling concessions down there. They want to do whatever we can to increase park usage, but it's really a beautiful amenity for the county, and I thank you all for expanding the park.
Measure Greenwell.
Thank you. Other communities and other counties have bound to have done this very same thing, and did CAECO give us any guidelines or give them any guidelines about how to proceed on this, as far as the insurance and everything?
As far as the insurance, I have not gone to CAECO. I just took the agreement to the county attorney.
Okay.
So we could do that if we feel like that's in our best interest.
It might not be bad to touch base with them, because I'm sure other counties that have got recreational areas have done this very same thing.
Yep, that's a good idea. So we'll make sure we do that.
Magistrate Eldridge.
Just an FYI, I went to a magistrate training that was presented by Fish and Wildlife, and this is a huge undertaking statewide. They have a new group that is studying kayaks, canoes, and SUPs, which is stand-up paddleboarding. And they say that this is the fastest growing segment of water usage in Kentucky, and they've got a guy in the Fish and Wildlife that is spending all of his time studying this and going around. So this is a coming thing at a lot of the parks that have waterfront usage.
This they plan to launch this at our small launch, if you will, not the main boat ramp. And did they have any funds available for improving access to the,
I contacted the gentleman you're speaking of, sent him an email, and asked him if he would be available to come to we're planning a water safety event at Westport Park as well, and I asked that gentleman if he could be there. He could not be there, but he did get back with me and said he'd be more than happy to come down and take a look at the park. And so I'm trying to set up a time for him to come in and look at maybe funding for ramp improvements and things of that sort.
There were some funds available. I put that person and Tim in contact with each other. So yes, we're working on that.
Okay, great. Any further comments here about it, questions? All right, well, we've had, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we're at the committee, Human Resource Committee recommendations. Magistrate Logston.
Yes, sir. I'd like to bring Ms. Schaft up to explain these job descriptions. And if you would you go ahead and do the pay scale while you're up here?
Good morning. We have 3 job descriptions before the court today for approval. The first 2 are in the engineer's office. Judge, do you want to take all of them together, or do you want to take them office-wise or single? Each
Well, why don't we take them all together unless somebody objects?
All right. The first one is an engineer in training. That's a job description for the engineer's office. The second one is a senior construction site inspector. That is actually a revised job description. It used to be the soil and erosion control inspector. And then the third one is the electrical inspector. That's a current job description that needed to be revised and
Judge,
updated.
The Human Resources Committee met on these, and we'd like to make a recommendation. We accept these job descriptions.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Second. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion among the court here on these descriptions? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Now, are you
Going to move on to the pay scale.
Revised pay scale?
Yes,
or the
it's-
addition, change there?
You have a pay scale in front of you that has the GIS manager title. Should have been GIS manager. I had it originally as GIS specialist. It had come to the court in 2013 and was revised to GIS manager, and it should have gone before you all as such, and it's not. So it needs to be updated.
Measure Logston? Let's get a motion on the floor
Judge, I'd
to
like to
accept
make
this
a
correction.
recommendation. We make that change from, to manager for GIS manager.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Measure Eldridge?
That word change is the only change in the whole document. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. All right.
And then we have the personnel actions. For the Judge Executive's office, we have the retirement resignation for Deputy Judge Executive John Black, effective June 30th.
To accept?
So moved.
Accept, does it happen?
Pardon?
If we don't accept, does it happen?
Probably gonna happen anyway.
I'll make the motion, Judge, if nobody's going to.
Second.
I moved and seconded.
Judge, if we vote no, can we snatch him back here?
I don't know. I think he's already,
In Florida.
He's already gone.
already enjoying
Headed
his
south.
retirement. Mr. Greenwell?
We'd have to retract the Oldham era article too.
Yeah, right.
Both of them.
Yeah, we have to turn back the clock here. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So moved. Good luck to John. All right, now appointment?
No.
The appointment of Kevin Nuss as a Deputy Judge Executive at $71,391, effective July 1st, 2017.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're at our second public comment here. Don't really see any commentators in the room, so probably skip that part and go on to winding up our meeting. Magistrate Logston, would you have any?
Just wishing everybody a happy 4th of July, and please keep your patience in Crestwood. It took me 30 minutes to go from Crestwood to Pee Wee Valley 2 days ago. So it's going to get better. You know, we got to have some growing pains for it to get better, but the turning lanes will be in. So just please be patient.
Magistrate Dye?
I will ditto what he said.
Magistrate Eldridge?
Thank you, Judge. It's that time of year where we're all mowing, and several people, I know Magistrate Greenwell and I both mow along state right-of-ways. Be really careful when you see people out there mowing, try to cut them a little slack. It's probably pretty fun to run over an old and graying magistrate, but if you hit a small child, not so much so. So be careful out there. Thank you.
Magistrate Hounds?
I'd just like to wish everybody a happy 4th of July and bring an extra set of patience on the roadways. I know today so far there's already been at least 2 incidents on I-71, and that's probably not going to decrease with the holiday traffic that AAA and that are saying is going to be on our highways this weekend.
Judge, they're mowing also. All the tractors are sitting down at the park and tark. So I know they're going to be mowing the right-of-ways on 71 this weekend, or this week.
Okay, so you say 2 incidents already today?
Yes, sir.
We had 5 accidents on the Monday, I guess, or Tuesday, one of the days, I don't know.
It's been a busy week.
What's in the water here?
Judge, they're already cutting on 71. I came in, I saw them.
Measure Greenwell.
Magistrate Eldridge, you have the grain part down, I have the old part down, is that? I would just urge everyone to travel safely on this 4th of July weekend.
All right, Magistrate Tice.
Just a reminder, we had the fireworks display, which will be taking place on Tuesday evening at dusk, whenever that is. And there's plenty of places to gather in either the school property or the parks property. So partake and enjoy.
All right, Magistrate Likens.
Thank you, Judge. I just had one question. I wish that, I highly respect Magistrate Steve Greenwell, but he votes no on our payables, and I guess I would like to know why, if there's a problem with something that he has. But he can discuss that with me privately if he wants to. I guess that my curiosity is getting the best of me. And the other thing is the Goshen Library. Since Mr. Urban is here, I would just like to request that a meeting be held to bring us up to date with what's happening with the possibility of getting a library in the Goshen area. It's one of these issues that seems to raise up, and we're all feeling wonderful about it, and then it just kind of goes into dormancy. So I would kind of like to maybe have an update, a meeting of the library board or something to update me, because I get questioned a lot by my constituents over there about what's happening with the possibility of getting a library there. So thank you very much. Everybody have a safe 4th of July.
Jim, are you up to responding, or you like to? All right, I believe discussions have continued with the key property owner in that area, but he hasn't been able or willing to bring it forth for consideration, because a library in North Oldham is, let's say, linked to other, perhaps rezoning certain areas there, and that is maybe a stumbling block.
I would like to bring it up for discussion and put our shoulder to the wheel if whatever.
Well,
have
we
to.
need to find a place there.
I do.
It's gone on, and we certainly are anxious, and certainly the most advantageous place has been identified, but it has some things linked to it that could potentially be issues. So, not for that particular spot, but just spots adjacent to it. So, I was surprised to hear about 5 accidents, 2 accidents today, 5 the other day. I had a chance to be on WHAS radio yesterday morning on Leland Conway show to talk about I-71. The state has put together a list of the 70 top statewide road projects, and that are going to be reviewed. Jim Urban will be attending a meeting soon representing us to try to move our projects higher. Out of the 70 projects, Oldham County, the widening of I-71 in 3 different segments have been ranked as 10th, I believe 14th or 13th and 17th. So out of 70 potential statewide projects, we're pretty high on the list. Jim is going to attend a meeting where it's possible, I won't say impossible, but I'll say possible, to raise our ranking higher. Yesterday on the radio, I encouraged people in Oldham County to get on the KYTC website. There's a page there that you can make comments and send them to Secretary Thomas. Let them know that I-71 should be as much priority as they can possibly make it. When you add up all the projects ahead of us, the first project on the statewide criteria was widening Gene Snyder from Taylorsville Road over to I-71. That was number 1. I believe they had $123 million on that project. you start adding up these projects ahead of us, doesn't take you too long to get to $1 billion. The state doesn't have enough money to pay for everything that's out there, but maybe something will change somehow. Maybe we can get higher on the list. So we're not low on the list by any means. We're recognized, and I know that we have the attention of state officials, are well aware of what's happening here with our accident problem. You know, it's just unbelievable. We're having this many accidents. I don't know why. You know, my tendency when I'm driving is to go 60 or 65 out there. I let these people fly by me. If they're in a hurry, be in a hurry, but I'm going slower. And I think if everyone would slow down a little bit, it would, my sense says it would, would improve things. But Jim's going to try to help us get a higher ranking, but our ranking's not low. It's good, but still, we're not, you know, we'd like to be higher. So, Measure die.
We've talked about this, that, I looked at the whole list. It's about $3 billion for the whole list. But I don't know if those numbers, if that's the actual total cost of the project, and if that is the case, a lot of that money we're talking about, a lot of it's gonna be federal money. So it doesn't mean the state has to come up with all of that. That's just the cost of the project.
Right. The state road tax is set at 26 cents a gallon now, and when gas hovers around $2.15, $2.17, 26 cents is what we're getting. If it went higher than that, we'd collect more. So we're all stuck between wanting a low price at the pump, but needing more money to have the state available to the state to do our project. So some, a big chunk is coming from the federal government, but a big chunk comes from Kentucky. Kentucky spends about $1 billion a year on road projects right now, with about, I'd say, 60% perhaps coming from the federal government. But of the part that Kentucky spends, it doesn't all go to these big highways. It goes right into our county road system and our city road systems, and it's divvied up quite a few different ways. So, Mr. Greenwell.
And as you say, Judge, rural secondary roads get a chunk of that, as they should. County roads get a chunk of that, as they should. And I understand about the widening of the Gene Snyder from Taylorsville Road over. That is maddening, but I would suggest that it's not dangerous. It's just slow and aggravating, whereas I-71 is deadly. So hopefully we will get moved up on that because it's causing accidents and deaths.
Right. So I ask everyone in the fiscal court and those within the sound of my voice today on our media to get on the KYTC website, let them know that you'd like I-71 to be as high a priority as possible, that we have these accidents, and we keep them notified on how many accidents we're having, and we're trying to do everything we can to raise that issue. So.
Did I hear you right, Judge, that you're the guy that's holding me up on I-71 doing 60 miles an hour?
No, I'm staying on the right, in the right-hand lane. You can zip right by me if you want to.
Everybody the sound of my voice, we know who's holding up the highway now.
Well, you and I won't get there 5 minutes apart wherever we're going, believe me. So, all right, is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. You must not have been at the meeting.